Good morning and welcome to Egan, Berger Weiner's presentation of Savvy Social Security Planning, the webinar. I hope that some of you are viewing this while curled up in front of the fire, perhaps with some hot chocolate on this nice snowy day. But my name is Howard Pressman. I'm one of the planners here at EBW, and I'll be your host for today's presentation. Social Security is a very important part of your retirement planning, and the system is very misunderstood. With several distinct types of benefits available, Social Security is far more complicated than most people think. And maximizing your benefits could potentially mean hundreds of thousands of dollars of additional benefits. So it is critical that you weigh your options and make the best decisions for you. Here to help us better understand Social Security and make some of those decisions is Michael Egan, one of our planners and a partner here at EBW. In addition to being a certified financial planner, Mike has studied and taught Social Security now for 3 years. So before I hand it over to Mike, I just want to cover a couple of housekeeping issues. Today's webinar is scheduled to run for 1 hour. We will have 45 minutes for the presentation and then 15 minutes for questions and answers. All of your lines have been placed on mute. We certainly welcome your questions, which Mike will answer at the end of the presentation. So please type your question in the box at the right side of your screen, and we'll be certain to get you an answer. This presentation is being recorded. A replay will be available on our website in just a couple of days. And we'll send an email notification when it is ready for viewing. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Mike.
Thank you, Howard. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to class for several years, and this is kind of the first time we're bringing it out to the client base. Many of you have had these strategies applied to your financial planning process already, but feel free to ask some questions as we go along, and then we can kind of queue them up at the end and deal with the questions as we go. Also, feel free to contact any one of your advisors after this presentation and talk to them directly about any of the issues that we have. You'll see up on the screen now the frontline advisors that are client-facing that you can address with questions regarding this matter. This is going to be a little bit of a challenge. This presentation normally takes 2 hours to go through, so my challenge today is to get through it in 45 minutes and still leave the floor open up for questions. So if I go a little fast, bear with me, but save the questions for the end and we'll get moving here. So for the average individual, when they're thinking about Social Security, they typically have several questions. And you'll see them listed up on the screen here. Will Social Security actually be there for me? How much can I expect to receive? When should I apply for Social Security itself? How can I actually maximize my benefits? And then the last one, which I think we all know the answer to, will Social Security be enough in and of itself to live on in retirement? So having said that, we're going to be addressing these questions throughout the presentation. And let's start with a little bit of background about the check itself. So a lot of people, they're like, Social Security, is it really a big deal? Do I need to spend a lot of time on it? And I think for most of you who've been clients for years, realize it is an integral part of the financial plan. And it's actually probably worth more to you than you might actually think. So for the typical individual, let's do a little analysis here. If you were receiving a $2,000 benefit in retirement, and you had that benefit for 10 years, that would mean with cost of living adjustments, you'd be accumulating over $300,000 in paychecks. Now, I consider that a pretty significant benefit. If you were alive for 30 years in retirement and receiving benefits, well over $1.1 million. And many of you on this call have benefits greater than $2,000 a month, so the benefits would actually be bigger. As a married couple, we could have double this number if you were both good income earners during your career. So $2 million worth of retirement benefits for a couple that lives into their 90s, that's a pretty significant benefit in many financial plans, and it's definitely something we need to pay close attention to figure out how to best utilize these dollars when they come available to us. So another way to look at it in terms of the size of the check is, and the benefit of the cost of living adjustment is on this slide that I have up right now. So Social Security has a built-in cost of living adjustment. Historically, that's matched inflation. So if inflation was 4% last year, the cost of living adjustment for Social Security would be 4% the following year. As we all know, or may not know, last year Social Security calculated the inflation protection to be 1.5%, which matched the consumer price index increase for that year. So if we look at it, we're assuming here for this presentation a 2.8% cost of living adjustment, which is actually just about the average cost of living adjustment we've seen over the last 40 years for Social Security. So if we take a look here, if I had that $2,000 benefit with cost of living adjustments, 10 years later, that benefit has grown to actually $2,600 a month. In 20 years, it's $3,400 a month, and in 30 years, it's $4,580 a month. Now, many of you out there may also be eligible for pension plans through work. If you work for the federal government or retired military or a state or local municipality like Fairfax County, most of your pension plans also have cost of living adjustments. Some of them COLA fully with inflation, some of them are partial COLAs, but for many of you, you have private sector pension plans. And the majority of private sector pension plans, maybe you work for Lockheed Martin or you work for ExxonMobil, they have no cost of living adjustments. So if you were getting a $2,000 benefit today, in 30 years that benefit is still going to be $2,000. So that makes Social Security even more important to your financial plan because it does keep up with inflation over time. Even with some adjustments we see down the road, we do hope that there will still be some level of cost of living adjustments attached to Social Security as we move forward with reform whenever that takes place. So that brings us to the next question. Will Social Security be there for me? For the average individual, they're not sure. There's a lot of stuff on the news. You know, it doesn't sound good all the time. But the reality is this. What keeps Social Security going is votes. And right now we've got a lot of people who vote who want Social Security. And as a result, how is that system going to work if the votes are there to keep the money there? And we're going to talk about that a little bit. So one of the things that we talk about consistently is what is actually funding Social Security. So it's funded with your tax revenue, that 6.2% tax that comes out of your paycheck that funds Social Security that's also matched by your employer helps create total income in the system. What you're seeing here on the screen right now is that for 2012, we had $840 billion of income. A lot of that came from taxes, but another chunk of that came from interest earned on the assets that are in the Social Security Trust Fund. And that trust fund is funded with special issue Treasury bonds. Some people have said, you know, is it really real money? Well, if you believe the Treasury is going to pay off its debt, then I think you have to follow the same logic that Social Security Treasury bonds are going to pay off as well, and we feel that as well. So for 2012, the numbers for 2013 are not available yet, but here's an example. So between the interest earned on the trust fund and the Social Security tax revenue, $840 billion came in. Through benefits that were paid out during the year, $786 billion were paid out, which gave a net increase in assets for the year of $54 billion. So that took the trust fund from $2.677 trillion up to $2.732 trillion. The expectation is even if revenues fall a little bit short, and remember Social Security tax went up this year. Remember we had that hiatus there for a while where it was actually at 4.2%. Now it's back up to 6.2%. That itself will help pay for this increase in the trust fund for many years, and then the interest will pay beyond that. And then at some point we're going to start dipping into the trust fund, and then we're going to run out of money. So if you look at it here, there's a little graph, but I'll go into it a little bit more detail here. They're projecting that we'll have enough money in Social Security to pay the debt of the Social Security recipients 100% through the year 2032. That with the Social Security tax revenue, and this is without any changes, with the Social Security tax revenue and the trust fund itself, we have enough money coming in to cover us through 2032. From 2033 all the way up to 2087, just the tax revenue would cover 77% of the benefits currently being promised right now to retirees. So it won't take much in terms of tweaking the system to make that number bigger. And then even after 2087, we'll still have enough revenue coming in to support 72% of the promised benefits that we're currently forecasting. Now, I expect the system to be changed dramatically well before that date, but this gives you an idea that it probably won't take as much as most people think to make this system solve it for the rest of your lifetime. for this particular call, we think everybody who's currently the age of 60, meaning 1954, born in 1954 or later, is pretty much safe with Social Security right now based on what we're seeing in Congress, what we're hearing from lobbyists that they're dealing with the issue, that we don't think your benefits will be changed in any significant way except one, which I'll get into in a little bit. So for the younger people, if you're younger than that, you're born after 1954, we think your benefits are going to change slightly. But the younger you are, the more dramatic the changes. So if you're in your 50s, for planning purposes right now, we might count 75% of the benefits that are currently being promised to you to be conservative. If you're in your 40s, we might count only half the benefits being promised to you to be conservative. If you're in your 30s, at the most we'll count is 25%. And if you're in your 20s, we're going to start a financial plan without it, saying, hey, whatever we get from Social Security is going to be bonus money, and we'll factor that in later. So just realize that this assumption is also factored into the plan, and when we do planning, we are typically more conservative than some of the numbers we're actually seeing here. Here's some of the reform proposals that are currently being studied right now on the Hill. We had the big Social Security Reform Committee that came out a few years ago with some recommendations. Of course, nothing was ever done. It's just not a big priority right now, but I guarantee you within the next 3 or 4 years it's going to come back to the forefront, and it's going to be right there. So here's some of the things that they're talking about. Number one, let's increase the tax on Social Security itself and start with the earnings. So right now, for 2014, you don't pay Social Security taxes after $117,000 of income. So if you made $150,000 for the year, your last $33,000 worth of income would not be subject to Social Security tax. In the future, we expect that number to jump. It goes up every year already to keep pace with inflation. Last year was $113,000. This year it's $117,000. But we think at some point it could jump to $150,000, $250,000, and then go like Medicare to unlimited. So right now, if you remember, Medicare, that other 1.45% tax you have on your paycheck, is on an unlimited amount of income. So you could make $1 million a year and still be paying that 1.45% Medicare tax, and your employer would be matching that as well. Social Security could eventually someday look like that, where on any amount of income you're going to be paying that tax, and that would dramatically increase the flows into the system itself. A second proposal that's being studied is to raise the normal retirement age. Now, the last time we had major Social Security reform was during the Reagan administration, and we did, in fact, do that. Social Security retirement age used to be 65 for everyone. And what they said was, okay, it's 65 for everyone, but if you're younger, it's going to be a little bit older, 65 and 6 months, then 66. So right now, the majority of our close to retired clients were born between 1943 and 1954, and they're in that age group where they hit full Social Security age at 66 exactly. For anybody born after 1954, it's going to take you a little bit longer to get the full benefit from Social Security. If you're born after 1960, like myself, by the way, I am one of the youngest boomers in the United States. The baby boom ended, at least according to the government, in 1964, and I was born in mid-December of 1964, so I'm kind of right at the end of that baby boom. So people born after 1960 or later, right now, you wouldn't get full benefits till you're 67, and we think it's very likely that those dates will be pushed out further, 68, 69, and probably even 70 for the youngest future recipients of the system. The other thing is maybe they'll lower the benefits for future retirees. Well, how would they go about doing that? One of the things they're talking about doing is changing the formula on how benefits are calculated. We're going to go over that formula a little bit in the future here, but in the past what they did was they looked at your wages historically. So let's say you made $30,000 a year 20 years ago. They would then adjust that $30,000 the year you turn 62 to a 2014 dollar amount. So if that was a 1994 income and they're trying to adjust it to 2014, they looked at wages in the United States as an aggregate, and they said, what's the equivalent of $30,094 in 2014? And then they made that adjustment to your calculation so that you had an average monthly income adjusted to today's dollars with that wage-based inflation adjustment being factored in. What they're talking about doing going forward is instead of adjusting it based on changes in wages in the U.S., just adjust it based on the Consumer Price Index, which over the past 40 years is much lower in its annual adjustments than the wage base in this country has been. So wages historically in the U.S. have gone up higher than inflation, and that would negatively affect the benefit you would receive if and when that new calculation for benefits would come out. And then the last issue they're discussing, which we think has a high probability of actually going through, and this would affect actually all retirees, including current Social Security recipients potentially, is capping the cost of living adjustment on the benefits themselves. So, for example, if inflation in fact was 4% this year, they might cap the benefit at 2.8%. Actually, that was the recommendation of the last committee, that they give 100% of inflation adjustments up to 2.8%, but nothing above that. We only know what's going to happen by making guesses at this point because there's no bills or anything right now in Congress for voting. But these are some of the primary issues that we see out there. If I'm understanding it correctly, I think Howard's going to take a little mini poll here, asking you which of these you prefer to see happening. And then we can maybe discuss this a little bit further if we have some additional questions. So, having said that, let me move on to the next question here. How much can I actually expect to get from Social Security? So many of you know this answer because you get that little statement in the mail every year. For those of you closer to retirement are probably paying more close attention. Any of you who are clients of the firm, obviously you're paying close attention to it too because we require it for your annual review to run updated financial plans. But ultimately, it's a function of a formula. So it's how much you earned over your working career and the age at which you actually applied for benefits. At age 62, your earnings are tallied up, like I said before, and then adjusted for present year dollars, and then they give you what's called your AIME, your average income per month during your high 35 years of earnings. That's right, I said the high 35 years. So for Social Security, unlike some pensions, they count your high 35 years of earnings to determine your paycheck. So let's say you were a stay-at-home mom who re-entered the workforce after raising the kids. Maybe you don't have 35 years worth of earnings on your earnings record. What would they do? They'll take all the earnings years you have, and then if you had 23 years worth of earnings, they would take the additional 12 years and count them as zeros in determining the formula for your actual benefit per month. Once you get that monthly income average, they then have a formula that they apply, which I'll show you on the next page, and then from there the benefits are increased each year with cost of living adjustments. So if you're noticing here, we've got an example. We've got a baby boomer who was born in 1950. Their maximum, they maxed out Social Security every year since they were age 22, which is an impressive feat in and of itself. I mean, I don't know any client that's actually done that. I'm a far way off from doing that. So, I mean, this person hit the Social Security wage max every single year from 22. So maybe they graduated from Harvard Law at 20, and they're a successful lawyer in a law firm at 22. So they've hit that maximum Social Security tax every year. They paid it up. They've worked all the way through, and they're getting ready to retire. How would their benefit be calculated? Well, what the Social Security system does is this. They give you a 90% credit. If you look down there in the Piaa formula, they give you a 90% credit. So if my AIME, my monthly income, was $8,238 as an average during my working career, and remember, they're only counting the average as it pertains to Social Security taxes. So this individual may have made a lot more than that, but they only paid Social Security tax on X amount of that income, and that's all they get credit for in this formula. So the first 90, they'll get a 90% credit on the first 767 of that $8,238. So they get credit for $690 toward their Social Security check. For the next $3,800 worth of monthly income, they get a 32% credit, or another $1,200 added to their check. And then for that last $3,600 worth of income, which gets us up to $8,238 a month, they're only getting a 15% credit for those extra earnings, or an extra $542 on their check. So this individual, a max income earner, was actually receiving, at full Social Security age, $2,466.64 a month. If they take their benefit earlier, which we're going to talk about in a minute, that number would shrink. If they take their benefit later than full retirement age, that number would actually grow. And then we need to talk about when is the best strategy to take, which we're going to get into here. But what you'll notice is lower income earners under this system actually get a bigger bang for the buck toward their Social Security check. So if you were, let's say, a housekeeper, and you only made $15,000 or $20,000 a year, a much higher percentage of your income is going to be replaced by your Social Security check than an individual who made $100,000 a year in retirement. They're going to have a much lower percentage of their income replaced by the Social Security check. So it's already intentionally skewed to help out those who have lower incomes more than those with higher incomes. There's always been talk about, should we skew it further? I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but the system itself is already skewed in that direction. So just to give you a little education here. So based on when you were born determines when you get full benefits. So that full benefit there for everybody born between 1943 and 1954 is age 66. Again, anybody born after that, you got to wait a little bit longer to get that full 100% benefit at your full retirement age. So what if you apply for benefit early? Well, let's take a look here. Let's say you're born in that group there. If we go back to the previous page here, you're born between 1943 and 1954. That group gets full benefits at age 66. So if your FRA, full retirement age, so we're going to use that phrase a little bit through this presentation. I want you to remember it. FRA equals full retirement age, the age at which you get 100% of your benefits. If your FRA was 66 because you were born in that band there between 1943 and 1954, if you take your benefit at 62 instead of 66, you're only going to get 75% of that benefit for the rest of your life. So you're taking a 25% hit, but you are getting checks 4 years sooner. So it's something to consider. If you took it at 63, you're only getting 80% of your benefit for the rest of your life. The longer you delay, the closer you get to that 100% benefit. Now again, if your FRA is 67, which means you were born 1960 or later, if we go back to the previous chart, then you're going to get a further reduction on taking your benefits earlier because you wouldn't get full benefits till later. I think this is pretty logical for most people, but if you have questions, feel free to call your advisor and we'll go through this in more detail with you. Now, do I get a benefit if I wait? You actually do. This is a strategy that we're taking with many of you because it makes sense for a lot of you in that situation. Not everyone. There's definitely recommendations we'll have to take it early or take it on time as opposed to waiting, but there is a benefit to wait. So how much do you get more by waiting? You're going to get what's called DRCs, Delayed Retirement Credits. And how much is that? It's an 8% increase for every year you wait on your check, and that's a permanent increase. So if you're 66 today and you could have gotten 100% of your benefit by taking it now, and you wait to take your benefit till 70, you're going to get 132% of your benefit for the rest of your life, which is a huge increase. If you are 67, your full benefit isn't derived until you're 67. So if you're born after 1960, your full benefit isn't derived until you're 67. So by 70, under today's rules, you'd only get 124% if you waited till 70. My bet is by the time everybody born after 1960 starts receiving benefits, the rules will change a little bit there. But for those of you born between 1943 and 1954, which would get full benefits at age 66, I think we're pretty safe in assuming what we're seeing right here. How do I actually determine my benefits if I don't have the statement that it's at home? So we send you out a little set of instructions on how to go get your benefit online, but it's right here. You can go straight to the Social Security website and request a benefit, or you can actually click on and try and estimate the benefits yourself. There's various calculators online, but it's a pretty simple, straightforward process, and they're actually going to start mailing you benefits once you get close to retirement automatically. Something they stopped there for a while. So let's talk about the types of benefits you're actually going to receive in retirement. So there's 3 different benefits you as a Social Security recipient could receive during your lifetime. The first, and the one we've just talked about, is your own benefit. And that's the only benefit that gets delayed retirement credits. So by waiting after your full Social Security age, it actually gets bigger. No other benefit works that way. The other two benefits are a spousal benefit or a divorce spousal benefit, which means you are married to someone or you were married to someone for at least 10 years and you have not remarried at the current time. And then the last benefit is a survivor benefit. You were married to someone who was eligible for Social Security benefits. They've passed away, and now you're trying to make the decision. So at some point in your life, you might actually be taking your own benefit at one age, flipping to a spousal benefit at one age, and then flipping to a survivor benefit at a later age, or some combination in reverse. So it's very important to know what these benefits are, and then we run them in your financial plan to determine the best strategy for you. Having said that, what is the spousal benefit? So we talked a little bit already about your own benefit and how it's calculated based on your work, your earnings, and when you take it. Spousal benefit is based on your spouse's work, their earnings, and when you take it. So what is the spousal benefit? The maximum spousal benefit you'll ever receive is half of your spouse's full retirement age benefit. So again, they get their full retirement age benefit when they hit that magic number. For the purpose of this discussion, we're saying that's anybody when they hit age 66, because we're going to target this presentation for people born between 1943 and 1954. The information is good for everyone, but these are the people we think really they're pretty safe with the changes in the system right now. So when I turn 66, I'm going to get my full benefit. If my spouse is the same age as me and he or she chooses to collect a spousal benefit at that time, they would get $1,000 a month. And they can make the decision, do they take that $1,000 a month, which is their spousal benefit, or in this example here, my spouse is, let's say I'm John, my benefit at retirement is $2,000 a month. My wife is Jane, her benefit at retirement is $800 a month. We're the same age. At 66, Jane would be better off applying for spousal benefits, which is $1,000 a month, rather than her own benefit at $800 a month. So that would be a decision that you would make with your advisor here, would be advising on strategies with that, and then would go and execute that with the Social Security Administration. How do I get spousal benefits? To get spousal benefits, the primary worker on whose benefit you're taking the spousal benefit from must have filed for their benefits. Now, oftentimes we recommend a strategy to clients called file and suspend. That can only happen when the worker is age 66 or older. They go in, they file for benefits, and then they say they don't want them because they're actually delaying them, but the action of filing allows you, the spouse, to claim a spousal benefit. In addition to the worker having filed or filed and suspend for their benefits, the spouse must be at least age 62 to claim spousal benefits. But if they take it that early, just like the reduction on your own benefit for taking it early, you're going to get a reduced spousal benefit by taking it early as well. And there are no delayed credits on spousal benefits, so if you know spousal benefit is the one you're going to be taking, there's no point in ever delaying it past your full retirement age because it's not going to get any bigger. You can also get the exact same benefit if you're a divorced spouse. Now, how does this work? You had to have been married for at least 10 years. The person receiving the divorced spouse benefit is currently unmarried. Your ex-spouse is at least age 62. That's a little different than the first one we saw where they had to be claiming. And if the divorced spouse was more than 2 years ago, your ex-spouse, so if the divorce was more than 2 years ago, your ex-spouse doesn't even have to file for their own benefits in order for you to get it. We know sometimes divorces are contentious, and occasionally the spouse isn't helping you out, quote unquote. The Social Security Administration realizes that too, so that's not a necessary trigger to get benefits here. But divorced spouse benefits are the same as regular spousal benefits if and when you qualify for them. There's some more rules here. I'm not going to spend too much time on that right now because of the time we have for the presentation, but this presentation will be up and available on our website at some point for a replay, and you can take a look at it. The last benefit I want to get into is survivor benefits. So survivor benefits depend on the age at which the deceased spouse originally claimed his or her benefits. So if your late husband or wife started receiving their benefits at 70, they earn the delayed retirement credits, and the divorced spouse benefit you get, or sorry, the survivor benefit that you would get is going to be equal to their check, including the delayed retirement credits, or your own check, whichever is bigger. So if you earn more benefits than your late spouse, you might decide to keep taking your own benefits. If, on the other hand, the survivor benefits are bigger, you might go that way. And a survivor benefit is also eligible for divorced spouses. So again, this is something to consider. You may not have even had contact with your ex-spouse for many years, but if and when they pass away, you might want to revisit whether or not taking your own benefit or the survivor benefit is more beneficial. Having said that, letting us know that it happened and working with you on the calculations for that is probably the best way to go about this, but it's definitely something to be aware of. So we've got your own benefit, we've got spousal benefits, we got survivor benefits. The only way you get survivor benefits is if your current spouse or your ex-spouse has passed away. Okay, and when you take survivor benefits does not impact your own Social Security benefits. So, for example, if you turn 62, you're no longer working, your ex-spouse has died, but your own benefit would eventually be bigger than that. Taking the survivor benefit at 62 until 70 and then delaying your own benefit till 70 probably would be the optimal strategy, something we'd work out with you on some spreadsheets here to go through. Let's go through here. So the next question a lot of people ask, when should I apply for benefits? And that really depends on looking at your overall financial plan as well as these various issues here. What is your health? What is your life expectancy? If you had cancer in the past, all your parents already been deceased by the age of 70, what's your need for income, whether or not you plan on keeping working, and is there a need for your surviving spouse? These will all dictate when you should apply or when they should apply for benefits. And it gets a little complex when we're putting all these variables in, but we've got some good software in the office here to help us out with that, and integrating it into the overall financial plan is ideally the optimal thing to do. So again, we talked about why you might want to consider delaying benefits. Let's put this in terms of dollars. That individual that we saw before who had been maxing out their benefits since the age of 22, if they take their benefits at 62 because they're retired, they're only going to get 75% of their benefit. Without cost of living adjustments, that's $1,850 a month versus $2,466 a month if they waited till 60, or if you go all the way down the chart here, at age 70, their benefit would be $3,255 a month. When we factor in cost of living adjustments in that decision, a benefit at 62, which would be $1,850 a month, could have been $4,060 a month if you waited till 70. So that's a pretty big impact. And that means, if you do run out of asset at some point in the future, you have a much larger Social Security check to fall back on to help pay your bills and not be a burden on yourself or the kids or someone else. So delaying can actually make more sense in the long run. If you claim benefits at 62, and you look here at the chart, by age 70, your benefit's $2,300. By age 80, it's $3,000 a month. By age 90, it's $4,000 a month. By age 100, it's $5,000 a month. If, however, you delay till 70, that same benefit, at 70, you're getting $4,000 a month versus $2,300 a month. At 80, it's $5,300 a month versus $3,000 a month. At 90, it's $7,000 a month versus $4,000 a month. 175% more basically. And by 100, which if any of us is fortunate to live that long, we're looking at $9,200 a month versus $5,200 a month. That's a dramatic difference. So down the road, that delay decision definitely makes more sense the longer you live. And that's why health and life expectancy and other factors are factored in when we make these decisions for the clients. So how can I actually maximize my benefits? Understanding your benefits, understanding the benefit statement, seeing if it's accurate, if it's missing any years. Could you improve it by working longer is going to be key. That's definitely one thing to look at. Applying at the right time, looking at your income needs today and in the future? Do I have other assets I can draw on if I take Social Security later? If I don't, then maybe I don't have a choice and I got to take it when I retire. What's my life expectancy? What's my spouse's life expectancy? These are all things to consider in the process. There's also an earnings test. If you're going to continue to work and draw your Social Security benefits before full retirement age, you're going to get dinged on your Social Security check by how much you earned in your regular job. So for example here, we have it up on the screen here. If you started drawing Social Security benefits at 62 but kept working, you can earn up to $15,000 in 2014 from that job and have no impact on your Social Security check. But for every $2 you make above $15,480, you're going to lose $1 in Social Security benefits. So does it really make sense to draw benefits early if I'm going to get dinged on benefits because I'm earning so much money? So the typical answer is we usually wait to draw Social Security until you've decided to stop working or you're truly part-time at a low income level and just doing something that may be more fun than necessity. Now that ding you got by taking Social Security early and it was offset by extra earnings that you have, you will make that back later on when you hit full retirement age, but ideally it's probably just better off just to delay in general. You definitely need, in order to make the right Social Security decisions for yourself, to coordinate your benefits with your spouse. Not necessarily just talking to your spouse, but looking at the numbers. If I take my benefit now versus later, my spouse takes her benefit early versus later, the combination of the two benefits together, what's going to work best for the entire household. Even looking at it if you're dealing with a divorce situation, looking at the divorced spouse benefits and your own benefits is critical here. Now, if you're single, it's a little bit easier discussion, but definitely it can get pretty nuanced here when we're dealing with two benefits that we could possibly be working with. So here's an example. With the file and suspend strategy we talked about earlier, at full retirement age, FRA, a higher earning spouse applies for his benefit and asks that it be suspended. The lower earning spouse then files for spousal benefit. We're again assuming both of these people are the same age. The higher earning spouse delays their benefit till age 70. So in this example, Bob and Barbara are both 66. Bob's Piaa, which is the benefit he gets when he hits FRA, or full retirement age, is $2,000 a month. His wife Barbara, her benefit, her Piaa, primary insurance amount, which is the benefit she gets when she hits full retirement age, or 66 in this example, is $800 a month. So Bob wants to delay his benefit till 70. Why would he want to do that? Because he believes either him or his wife will live long enough to reap the benefits of those higher paychecks over time. So the best strategy for this couple may be that Barbara should file and suspend for her spousal benefit when she hits 66. Bob files and suspends his benefit and doesn't get a check at all and delays his benefit till 70. And this means that Bob's check at age 70 will now survive both lives. Because remember, Bob's check at 70, when he dies, becomes the survivor check for his wife, Barbara. So until they're both dead, that larger check that was delayed and is now 32% bigger is coming in for both of them. You could take the other example. So let's say we file now, get some benefit and get a bigger benefit later. This happens quite a bit actually in our practice, where we may say we want both spouses to delay their own benefit till 70 to get the highest amount possible. But while we're waiting, might as well get paid. So the way the Social Security Administration works is one of you can claim spousal benefits while delaying to take your own benefit. So when you hit full retirement age, you can go in and claim spousal benefits and get paid half of your spouse's check that he or she is not actually receiving because they filed and suspended for 4 years. So in the previous example where the spousal benefit would have been the primary benefit for the spouse was $2,000 a month, which meant the spousal benefit was half of that, or $1,000 a month. You got paid a check of $12,000 a year with cost of living adjustments for 4 years while you were delaying to take your own benefit, which by age 70 is probably more than $1,000 a month. And that's why you would go ahead and do that. I know this is getting a little complicated here, and if I had a little more time to explain, we'd get into it, but it's definitely a strategy that we recommend. You may have read about it in certain periodicals, Kiplinger, some other things. We're starting to see that come out now in the general public a little bit more. But it's a strategy where we may delay both clients to 70 for their benefits and have one of them, usually whoever's going to get the bigger spousal benefit, take the spousal benefit from 66 to 70. Another issue to consider on when to take your own benefits is tax. So we talked about earnings and working and how that could negatively impact your Social Security check. Taxes is also a consideration. So if you make too much money, which for most of our clients is if you make a living in retirement that you'd be happy with, you're going to get taxed on your Social Security benefits. The majority of Americans actually pay no tax on their Social Security benefits, which tells you that their overall income in retirement is really low, lower than most of you want and are planning for at this time. So let's take a look at an example we have here up on the screen. If you're a married couple filing jointly and as a couple you make $32,000 a year or less and you're drawing Social Security benefits, none of your Social Security check will actually be subject to tax. That's a pretty small lifestyle for most of our clients. You could live on it if you really cut back and you had no mortgage or whatever, but it would be very meager, or at least according to our standards. If, on the other hand, you're a married couple and you make between $32,000 and $44,000, up to 50% of your Social Security benefits will be taxable as ordinary income. Most of our clients are in the last category. In retirement, their taxable income is going to be over $44,000. That means 85% of their Social Security check will be taxable as ordinary income. Planning on where other income is coming from so you can work with these bands and minimize the impact on your Social Security check is an important part of comprehensive financial planning and something we'd work with. Single individuals, you see the chart there, and married couples filing separately, it really doesn't make a lot of sense to minimize the tax on your Social Security benefits. But tax is definitely a consideration for your Social Security benefits. So a couple of ways to minimize Social Security tax: reduce other income with tax advantage investments. Municipal bonds don't qualify here for that Social Security tax calculation. They're actually considered part of the taxable income, even though for federal tax purposes they're not. Anticipate when you need to take your IRA withdrawals, because remember, that's fully taxable income for most of you if it's coming out of a regular IRA, and that would add to the taxable income, which in turn could make your Social Security check more taxable. Convert, if it makes sense, traditional IRA to a Roth IRA, so when you hit 70 and a half, you won't have to hit required minimum distributions. Delaying your Social Security benefit of number of years would delay the tax impact on that, and reducing other expenses, debt, whatever, like we don't have a mortgage anymore, so we don't have to take as much out of our investments, which means we have less income needs, in turn could also reduce the tax on Social Security itself. We need to continue to manage the tax throughout retirement. That's why we are very tax conscious when we look at where we're spending the money from to support your retirement needs. And last but not least, the most important thing to do with Social Security is coordinate it with your overall financial plan. We're doing that now for those of you who are clients and listening in, but it's all tied in as part of the comprehensive financial planning process. At this point, I hope you guys learned something on Social Security. If you have additional questions, feel free to contact your advisor, or you can contact me directly. But I want to open up the floor to some questions. So, Howard?
Hi. So we'll go ahead and open it up for questions at this time. If you have any questions, please go ahead and type them into the panel on the right side of your screen, and we will go ahead and compile them and get answers for you. We have a couple already. And the first one is, hasn't Congress already grabbed some of the Social Security money for other projects?
Okay, that's a great question. So the question is Congress raided the trust fund? The answer is yes. But the trust fund is still funded by special issue Treasury bonds. So I don't think that's negatively going to impact your benefits, because the Treasury bills, the Treasuries still have to be paid off. So unless we believe the government's going to default on its debt, which I guess is a possibility, though I think it's a long shot, I think we're okay. What isn't happening and what I think may eventually happen is that the Social Security revenue that comes in every year is not clearly allotted just for Social Security purposes. So at some point in the future, the economy starts chugging along again at a nice clip, and we have more revenue coming in from Social Security than we need to fund Social Security benefits for that year. What's going to happen to that extra revenue? Is it going to go to buy more assets in the Social Security Trust Fund, or is it going to be spent for other purposes? That was the discussion we had as far back as the Gore-Bush election battle. Remember the whole lockbox theory? You know, should we lock up the Social Security revenue in its own separate box so we can save it for the future, or do we need to integrate it as part of the whole? As it stands right now, whether the government spends the benefits or not, it's still, we look at total revenues coming in from Social Security, total expenditures for Social Security, and the difference between those two, which includes the interest earned on the trust fund, either increases the Social Security Trust Fund or decreases it. So regardless of whether Congress spent it, the trust fund itself is still growing annually, at least at the present time. I hope that answers your question. Again, you never know what Congress may do, but since Congress is funded by votes and the votes say we want to keep it going, I feel pretty comfortable that whether they rate it or not is going to be a non-issue here.
Very, very good. Thank you. Mike, have you seen a break-even age at which point it would have been better to wait versus take your benefits earlier?
I have. So on a straight break-even calculation for the typical retiree that we're seeing, taking your own benefits, let's say at 66 versus age 70, break-even is right around age 79 or 80. So you got to ask yourself, am I going to live longer than that? Or is my spouse going to live longer than that if I have the bigger of the two benefits? Because remember, this is going to become the survivor benefit for that person. For the average individual that we're seeing right now, married couple, most of the time the odds are that at least one of them is going to live that long, and it might make sense for at least a higher income earner to delay till 70 because of that. It's not always the case. There are exceptions to that rule, but I would say right now, again, 79, 80 is the typical break-even. The break-even is earlier than that, though, if you're eligible to get a survivor benefit while you're delaying, sorry, not a survivor benefit, a spousal benefit while you're delaying to take your own benefit. So if that's the case, the break-even is typically brought down to around 77. So I don't think it's as simple as looking at the break-even. I think it really comes down to is where's the bigger risk. For most people, running out of money before you run out of life is the risk that we're all most afraid of. We don't want to be a burden on our kids or be a ward of the state, quote unquote. And we want to make sure we have enough assets there to do that. So if I have a bigger Social Security check to fall back on, even if I ran through my investments, it puts me in a better position to be able to pay my bills. It also puts me in a better position to not be a burden on my children. So for most of us, having that bigger check at a later date is the risk that we're really trying to cover, but not in every case. Definitely health issues come into play, looking at how important an inheritance is for you if that's your number one goal. Sometimes taking the benefits a little bit earlier may be more beneficial from an inheritance standpoint if we're willing to look at it from those odds. So every situation is different, but just want to give you some ideas. That's the typical break-even we see.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Next question, IRA to Roth conversion. What determines if that's good to do?
Well, there's several variables there. Your overall tax on that conversion, what tax rate are we going to add? If you have a really low income one year and we can do the conversion in the low tax bracket, that may be very attractive for long-term planning purposes. Also, whether or not you're going to need that money that you just converted to a Roth within the next 10 years, or is it money that you're not going to be spending for 20 or 30 years, or maybe even it's going to be money that ends up going to the kids, can determine whether or not that's a good idea. A lot of times, if this is an inheritance for the kids, you're young now, you can do the conversion, you can pay the tax out of other assets and not reduce the size of the IRA. A Roth conversion can be very attractive. We've done scenarios for that for clients where the kids have a significantly larger inheritance pool because of that conversion than they would have had otherwise. But in other cases, we've advised clients against conversions because of when they're going to need the money and what the overall mix is. But it's really going to take a calculation. It's not as simple as saying it's going to work or it's not going to work. Again, I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but every situation is in fact different, and the numbers are going to work differently for each client. Any additional questions?
Okay, we have a question. Is the spouse's benefit calculated on the spouse's original Piaa or the current Piaa at the time of claim?
So the question was, is the spousal's benefit calculated on the spouse's original Piaa or the Piaa at the time they claim benefits? Well, so the Piaa is calculated when you hit full retirement age or when you start to claim benefits. So the answer is the Piaa at the time you claim benefits is truly the right answer. So if you delayed your benefit till 70, and let's say you kept working till 70 and your Piaa was growing a little bit every year as a result of working till 70, then it would be recalculated along the way. Even if you were drawing benefits at 66 and continued to work beyond that age, your Piaa would be adjusted because of those additional earnings you made from 66 to 70. Did that answer your question? Okay, we've kind of hit our hour. We're actually at an hour and 7 minutes at this point. I don't want to take anybody else's time up. But if you have any question, Howard's going to wrap things up here in a second. But feel free to email me some questions if you'd like, or email your advisor directly, and we'll take them one-off from here. But it's been great talking to all of you. Happy New Year. And look forward to talking to you on the next EBW quarterly conference call. Howard's going to give you some updates at this point.
Hello, everyone. All right, thank you very much, Mike. I hope everybody received questions, received answers to questions. Certainly, if you have any additional questions, you are free to follow up with us. I want to thank everybody for joining us today for Savvy Social Security Planning. Obviously, Social Security planning is quite in-depth, and it really is an individual decision. No one strategy is the best for everyone, so we certainly encourage you to follow up with your financial planner here at EBW, and we'll be happy to incorporate this into your retirement planning if you have not already done so. So on behalf of all of us at Egan, Berger Weiner, I thank you and hope that you enjoy the rest of this snow day. Thank you very much.